Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is pulling comps to determine your ARV. One of the crucial aspects of successful house flipping is accurately determining the after repair value, or ARV. To achieve this properly, it's paramount to use the correct comparables, or comps, when evaluating potential properties. Ensure that the properties you compare are truly comparable in terms of location, size, condition, age, and features. Here are 5 reasons why using the correct comps is imperative. Number 1, accuracy in valuations. Using comps that closely resemble the one you're planning to flip provides a more accurate estimate of its potential value after repairs. Look for properties in the same neighborhood or nearby with similar square footage, layout, and amenities. Number 2, local market dynamics. Real estate markets can vary widely, even within the same city. Understanding the specific dynamics of the local market is essential. Consider factors such as school districts, crime rates, and proximity to amenities, as they can significantly impact property values. Number 3, adjust for differences. No 2 properties are created equal, and adjustments may be necessary when comparing comps. Take note of variations in features like the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, or additional amenities. Adjust the sale prices accordingly to reflect the true value of your property. Number 4, recent sales data. Markets can change over time, so it's crucial to use recent sales data for your comps. Aim for sales that have occurred within the last 6 months. Outdated information may not accurately represent the current market conditions. Number 5, consider renovations. If you plan significant renovations, look for comps that underwent similar upgrades. This will give you a more realistic understanding of the potential value your improvements can bring to the property. So, by diligently selecting and analyzing comps, you increase the likelihood of accurately estimating the after repair value. This is fundamental for maximizing your profits in the competitive world of house flipping. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us my new friend, Brad Chandler. Brad first got introduced to real estate when he read a book in the 9th grade on how to buy houses. In 2002, shortly after, an investor bought his neighbor's house in Vienna, Virginia, and after talking with the investor, he decided to start Express Home Buyers. 20 years later, Express Home Buyers has bought and sold over 4,000 homes across the country and runs primarily without his involvement. In early 2021, he went through a major life transformation and found freedom and happiness through self-love. In 2022, because of the profound shift, he felt obligated to share his path with others and started Brad Chandler Coaching, where he now helps others overcome childhood programming so they can live the life of their dreams. He also has his own badass podcast called How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. I'm happy to have him on the show, so welcome, Brad Chandler.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. You are the epitome of happiness, even exemplified in your shirt that you have on there. So with a big smiley face. And what does it say on there? No one can love you like you can.
No one can love you like you can. And that is the truth and the huge secret to life.
Unlike my shirt that says,
Swearing helps.
We are a match made in heaven, aren't we, Brad? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So happy to get you on the show. I have been stalking you a little bit on Facebook, but you have just great things to say. I love what a lot of people call this woo-woo stuff, but I love it. It just is what fuels me to keep going every day. And I can't wait to get into that side of it. But first, I want to know, how did you get started in real estate besides the ninth grade book?
So I want to tell you something about your opening session that
yes.
I wanted to add that will be really helpful. So when you're looking at comps, when you're evaluating a house to buy, if you do not look at the active comps, when the market isn't going up like crazy like it has for the last 12 years, you can really get stuck. So you always want to look at the active comps, because if you base your property on a sold from even 20 days ago at say 300,000, but there's an active that's at 270, guess what? Your comp isn't 300 anymore. It's 270, unless of course the person's underpricing it, but that usually doesn't happen. So just keep an eye on the actives. Really important.
I love that you said that. And it's important when you are going through renovations. If it's a six-month project, you always want to make sure you're getting the latest comps. But, normally we tell students not to look at active properties, but absolutely huge point. I was just telling you, I'm going to Virginia. You live in Virginia. I'm going there tomorrow. And I was looking at what is for sale around some of these properties that I'm looking at. So excellent point. Thank you for that, Brad.
You're
I appreciate
welcome.
that. So, all right, how did you get involved in real estate?
So an investor bought my neighbor's house in late 2002, and I went and talked to him, and he said, yeah, I've been buying houses for years. I buy them at, below market, and I fix them up and I resell them. And I was like, gosh, it's been a long time since I read that book. I didn't even know you could buy houses at discount. And I always wanted to do real estate, but at the time I was working for a developer, and I thought I was going to go the apartment route. And I was like, wow, I'm going to do this. And that was late 2002. My son had just been born, and I was working a full-time job for a real estate developer. So I'd come home at night and spend 6 to 8 p.m. with him, put him to bed, and then I'd go out and I'd bang "We Buy Houses" signs into telephone poles. And it took me 8 long months, Jen, to find my first deal. 8 months of just like hard work. But each week that went by, I got more and more persistent. And then in June and July, I bought 6 houses. And in October, I went to my boss and said, I quit. And I came home and I told my wife at the time, I said, I quit. She was like, are you crazy? We have a newborn son, and I have 2 kids that you need to support, and you quit? I was like, it'll be fine. And here we are. We're not still married, but here we are 4,000 houses and 20 years later, and everything was fine. I told her.
Nice. And so what was the book you read in the 9th grade?
How to Buy Real Estate with No Money Down by Robert Allen, who after all these years, because I'm 50, after all these years, I met him at a mastermind that he is in with me a month, or actually it was in September of last year. I met him in Tampa. It was I went and told him, I go, you changed my life.
Oh my goodness. I was in that area in November of last year in Florida. Ugh, man, I hate going to Florida. But anyway, so that is did you get him to be on your podcast?
I haven't asked him.
You need to. And he changed the trajectory of your life. You always had it on the brains, and then this guy took over this house next door, and then you went for it. So did you start the company with that gentleman, or?
Oh, no. I started by myself. And then in October, right around that time, I was looking for a partner. And here's why I was looking for a partner. I wanted quality of life. I didn't want to work all the time. And I had a negative $80,000 net worth from graduate school. So I had no money, and I was making like 60 grand a year at that time. So I found this amazing partner who we are still partners with till this day.
Really? That is quite rare.
It is really rare, really, really rare.
So can you give us some pointers on how to keep a successful partnership?
You weren't
expecting that question.
I don't think I did everything. It was just kind of like just happenstance and magic, because my ego, which we'll talk a lot about in the coming minutes, there was a point in time where I felt I was doing a lot more early on, and I actually tried to buy him out. Well, actually, I did buy him out, but then shit hit the fan. And in 2005, we were crushing it in the first 5 months. So I bought my first house in 2003. On paper, in the first 5 months of May, we netted $1.5 million. So I'm like, I'm the smartest guy in the world. I'm going to be retired soon. This is all me. I'm doing all this. He's not doing anything. So I bought a percentage of the company from him, and then I couldn't pay him. And so we unwound it. And then in 2000, was it 5 or 6, the summer of 2005 or 6, we bought 3 development deals that ended up costing us $3 million. So yeah, but back to your question, we're 2 visionaries, which you can imagine the chaos that ensued in our business. I mean, major chaos. Look, I think now I could answer the question better on how you keep a partnership or any relationship, and that's a better connection with yourself. So if you're listening to this and your marriage is struggling or your intimate relationship is struggling, it never ever has to do with the actual relationship. It has to do with the relationship that each individual has with themselves. So if you want to fix your marriage, all you have to do is heal the connection you have with yourself. And I've been proof of this. I've done it myself, but I've had clients where they came to me on the brink of divorce and I never had a marriage counseling session, but a year later, their marriage is like amazing.
You know, I love all of that, and I definitely want to dig into that. I'm a big, big believer as well. And you cannot expect to love anybody else unless you love yourself, which is huge. So I want to go back to that first property. You said you hung up bandit signs on posts and it took you 8 months to find that first deal, but then it was just a snowball and just kept going. So tell me a little bit about that first deal.
Oh man, the first deal was actually a deal that a realtor brought me, and I'm pretty sure he made more money than I did because it was a VA VA foreclosure. So he obviously was the selling agent. So he represented me on the purchase, but he's like, you've got to use me as a listing agent too. And I think I made like 10 or 11 grand after buying it, taking it down, getting the loan, everything. Ton of work as in just, I didn't know what I was doing, right. But I made a little bit of money. The next deal is the second and third deal, or the really fascinating ones. The second deal I found from a listserv, and most of your audience is probably too young to even understand what a listserv is, but it was a Yahoo listserv. And I met this agent who said she had a client that was that wanted to sell. So I met with her in March of 2003, gave her an offer way too high. She came back to me in July, gave her a revised offer. And it was a situation where a lady wasn't paying, her husband was a Schwann's truck driver. She wasn't paying the mortgage, but she wasn't telling him. So she was like days away from foreclosure. So I get this email saying, or this call from the agent, because I kind of kept in touch with her, just like anyone else on that listserv could have done, but no one did. She was like, oh, my client is 5 days away from foreclosure. And since you're a foreclosure expert, I thought to call you. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll help you out. I took the property subject to, I had no idea what I was doing. That guy that bought my house next door, I called him, John Peterson. Thank God he was a savior. I go, John, what do I do? He goes, oh, you just put the house in a land trust and do subject to. And blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what the F did he just say? But he's like, call this title attorney. So I pulled it off and I bought this house, and I was getting ready to do this massive rehab, and I listened to a Ron LeGrand tape. I literally listened to a tape. He's in my mastermind now too.
Really?
What a great dude that guy is. Oh my God, so successful. And he's like, put a handyman special in the newspaper. So I did it, and I sold it to this lady and made like $40,000. That was I kind of count that as my first deal.
Very, very cool. I love all of that. And I want to know, how did this evolve into over 4,000 deals across the country?
Well, I, like many entrepreneurs, started my business not knowing, but started it thinking I need to make a shitload of money because money's going to bring me happiness and money's going to bring me worth.
I know where this is going.
I had to make a bunch of money, because if I didn't make a bunch of money and grow this nationwide company, I was not going to be enough, and no one would love me, and I would just suck and life would suck. So that's how I did it. I just kept trying and working, and I was terrible at systems, but I knew how important they were because I read a book called E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Great book.
And I just, slowly over time, I'd make millions and lose millions. And now we got an amazing team with a great culture and great systems, and things are just humming.
So how does the company work?
So we do probably 60% wholesale and 40% we'll take the property down and do some level from a $200,000 renovation to carpet and paint.
And this is across the country.
So we primarily operate in DC Metro, Baltimore Metro, in Southern California, LA. But we do generate leads from across the country. So we're not actively. It's kind of just if they come in through our website. So we have done deals in probably 20 states, but 95% of those 4,000 houses have been done in DC, Maryland, or Virginia.
Okay. Great area. By the way, this is a totally off topic question here, but is DC a landlord friendly or tenant friendly area?
130% tenant friendly. The worst actually probably in the country. Maybe New York is it's bad. It's really bad.
All right, good to know. Because I was just checking out a quad up there, and I was like, I just wonder. I didn't get too far with it, but
Jen, we bought a property in like 2017 with a tenant in there in DC, and we escrowed like 60 grand. Guess what? The tenant's still in it. We still own it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, the reason why I have you on the show today is because you are. I don't really call you a life coach. You are a happiness and freedom coach. And I love this. And you had a major shift in your entire life. So when you make that shift, does it impact making more money? Because you're saying you thought, I'm going to do 4,000 properties or 4,000 flips across the country, wholesales, etc., because I want to make a shit ton of money. And then what you realized was, you didn't have to have that money actually it brings you more money while being happy and having that purpose in your life. So tell us, how did all of this evolve back in 2021?
Yeah. I mean, the real myth is people think that once they have this business and they reach these levels that they'll find happiness and worthiness. And it's just the opposite. Happiness actually brings money. So I was on a call with a performance coach to try to get my son help for anxiety. And she's like, you have a tic. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she says, you blink profusely when you talk about your childhood. You may have some unresolved childhood trauma that's affecting your son. And I'm like, what? I'm a single dad. I'm so great to my son. There's no chance, but okay, I'll try anything. So I came out there and sure enough, my life in a 3-hour window changed forever. And this is the crux of everyone's issues, whether you're dealing with alcoholism, smoking too much weed, anxiety, addiction, depression, overweight, eating, whatever it is, it all comes down to one thing. As children, we don't always get our needs met. And when we don't get our needs met, Jen, we come up with stories, coping mechanisms to help us get through those tough times. I'm 6 years old. I'm 8 years old. I'm getting hit with a belt. I'm getting made fun of. It can't be my dad. It's got to be me. I must be bad because if I'm bad, I'm in control. If it's my dad, shit, I'm done, right? I can't control anything. But if it's me, if I'm bad, all I have to do is be good. And then I'll get the love that I want from my dad and he'll stop hitting me. So this, whether you know it, whether you believe it or not, this right here causes the thinking of you're not enough in some way, shape, or form. Or there's 1,000 different iterations. If I want a cookie when I'm 6 and I tell my mom because she won't give it to me, I hate her, and then she cries for 2 hours and then dad comes home and yells at me, then I've just learned that if I am my real self, people will not love me. And then you live with that and you have shitty relationships your whole entire life. This is the key, Jen, to every single problem that you are suffering right now. And the beautiful thing, it can all be fixed. And if we were listening to this podcast 5 years ago and I heard someone say that, I'd have been like, no chance my childhood has anything to do with it. I've got self-love. I've got high self-esteem. I don't care what other people think. But the truth is that was all a lie to keep me from feeling pain. So I created this self-love quiz. You can go take it. It's like 3 minutes. It's 12 questions. I just saw
this on your website. I can't wait to take this quiz. Yes.
Thank you. bradchandler.com/quiz. And you can figure out your level of self-love. And if you lack self-love or you have mild self-love, I promise you every area of your life is negatively affected to some degree. And don't take those results and be like, oh, this sucks. I don't love myself. Just the opposite. Think about how great and profoundly your life can change once you just learn to love yourself. And well, how do you do that? You just do what I did in a 3-hour session. That's what I do now with my clients. In 3 to 5 hours, they have these major breakthroughs because we go back and we figure out, you weren't born with this depression or drinking problem or addiction. Let's go figure out where it came from. There's something that happened. And then we're gonna prod into that a little bit and figure out what was the story you told. And then we just tell yourself a different story. And then boom, all of the symptoms, the drinking, the fighting with the spouse, the kids, it's all gone.
Wow. So is this like a form of timeline therapy?
A little bit. I use hypnosis. I think hypnosis is the greatest tool on the planet because every problem you have is driven by subconscious thoughts.
Yes.
Your behavior, you go to a job you don't like, you come home, you yell, you yell at the dog, you drink 3 glasses of wine. You're like, I don't know why I do this. Well, your subconscious mind does. So what we do is we just get you in a deeply relaxed state and we ask, Jen, what is this? I'm making this up, of course. What's the source of your depression? And you're going to say, well, dad, hit me, or dad didn't show up to any of my soccer games. And so I felt like he didn't love me. And then we'll be like, well, is that true? And you'll be like, well, it was probably my dad that didn't love himself. And then your brain is like, ding, 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 mismatch detector. Wait, it can't be that someone doesn't love me because I've seen where people love me in my life. So this is all true. And when this is untrue, the depression, there's no need for it anymore. Here's a key thing. Every symptom that you have in your life, and when I say a symptom, you drink too much, you yell, whatever, that is your brain's solution to think something that it thinks is worse and more painful. So when people go to therapists, they're actually going with the solution. The solution is I have anxiety or depression or I drink too much. That's actually a solution to something that your brain perceives is actually worse and more painful. But the beauty is the thing that you think is more painful and worse isn't. And so when we show your brain that, your brain's like, whoa, okay, so I don't need this symptom to protect me from something that really doesn't even exist.
Wow. So I'm actually a licensed hypnotherapist. I have never used it a day in my life, but it was a great education. Wow. I know, but it was great because I definitely believe in hypnotherapy. But going back to those childhood traumas, which we all have childhood traumas. And I think when I was doing some of my own education for myself is it's really easy to blame your parents for things when they too were only projecting their childhood traumas on you. And so I'm like, we're getting really deep here, kind of, and how this applies to your real estate, business is, you have to be a healthy person to take care of others as well. And I think real estate is all based on relationships. And by seeing this and connecting with people in such a deeper way, I think will only help your business as well. So going back to the childhood traumas and trying to remove that blame from your parents, what are some steps that people can do to really go through that forgiveness process?
Yeah, then let's get back to the money question, because I know everyone's probably like, well, how do you make more money when you become happier? Because that's a good one. So I had a client last year that told me, after he had this amazing transformation, he goes, Brad, do you know that I didn't come to you for 6 months? That's why it took me so long, is because I was afraid that you were going to try to blame it on my parents. Here's the truth. I never blame it on your parents. A story that I tell is if your kids have behavioral problems right now, if they have anxiety, depression, they're acting out in school and you want to know the cause, grab your spouse by the hand, go to the bathroom and look in the mirror. You're the cause. But notice that I didn't say it's your fault. Okay. You're the cause, but just the opposite. It's not your fault. And so when I went through lack of self-love and I realized that there was no reason I shouldn't love myself, and I found the self-love that was always inside of me, I then could look at my father and say, oh my gosh, that man was so wounded. And yes, he hit me, but he didn't hit me because he was hurtful. He hit me because he was hurting, and he thought that was the best thing for me. So you actually become closer to your parents when you become closer to yourself. You become closer to your children, your spouse, whoever it is, because earlier you said you couldn't give someone love you didn't have. If I said to you, Jen, give me 12 oranges right now, and you didn't have them, could you give them to me? No. Right. So when you learn to love yourself, you can give love to the world. And believe me, I've been on both sides of the aisle. When you're looking at people judging them and why can't they do this? And they suck. And now you're in my shoes where you look at someone and you go to compassion if you think that there's something that is off with them or they have a huge weight issue. It's not about that they're lazy because they have a weight issue. That's what I used to think. Now I look at them, I go, oh my gosh, they've got to be hurting because no one would be super overweight if they weren't hurting. This is just their way of coping. Again, remember I said the symptom? Why does someone eat a ton of food? Even though they know it's bad, it's because the food is protecting them from that thing that they think is worse, but it isn't worse. And all we have to do is show their beautiful subconscious mind that key, and then boom, they don't have to eat anymore to push down their feelings.
I love all of that. And I understand that. I have definitely been there, had the padding on to help protect yourself. And I agree 1,000% with this. So you work with people and within 3 hours, you can get them over this and have what we call a breakthrough. And that's done through hypnotherapy.
It is. So it's a 5-week program, and it just happens to be that in the 3rd week is a 2-hour hypnosis. The rest of it is just like flat out just coaching and how neuroscience works. And we use science and we use, tactics from thousands of years old. I'm huge into Buddha and just loving and we're all connected. So I just went out and I studied under who I think are some of the best in the world. And I continue to study under some of the best in the world because I've never found anything, and this will lead right into the money. I've never found anything in my life, Jen, that I felt more passionate and purposeful about. I've got books on the floor. I've got books behind me. I could go to a beach right now, pull up an umbrella, and for the next 30 years, get under that umbrella for 8 hours a day and read books on this. So I'm only a year or two into this business. Do you think that when we're back on this podcast in 5 years, that I would have made an immense amount of money? And why is that? Because this is the first business that I started that I didn't focus on money because I needed to prove my worth. And yes, I do charge. And yes, there's an investment because the more money I can make, the more impact I can make on the world. So now I'm focused on making an impact and I love what I'm doing. So imagine if you could wake up every day absolutely loving what you're doing, not focused on how can I get 10 more cents from this little lady who doesn't even have 10 cents to give me, but think about how could I go buy her an air conditioner because she doesn't have an air conditioner at summertime. You focus on making an impact in people's lives and solving their problems, and you're doing it with something that you love. You are going to be unstoppable. And I am proof of that because in the last 3 years, my net worth has climbed an X factor of any other 3 years prior. And guess what? I wasn't focused on money.
I want to know, because I love how this evolves. And I love that when you are happy about a business, when you have a purpose in life, and you touched a little bit on it, with the air conditioning for the woman. And, that is, I feel like tenfold to really grow your business, the better, that you are living that life purpose. And I agree 1,000%. And I wish we had 10 more hours to go through and discuss this, but there's a huge point here. And I want to know, what is that one thing that keeps people from freedom and happiness? Because you are the happiness and freedom coach. So I want to hear about this.
It's lack of self-love.
Okay.
It's lack of self-love, and lack of self-love is the opposite of extreme self-love is discontent. It's being mean to yourself. And
that's extreme self-love?
Sorry. The opposite of extreme self-love is self-contempt.
Okay.
And my good friend and my friend now, Mark Mincola, who wrote the book, the Way of Miracles, he talks about how self-contempt leads to dis-ease. So you're not at ease in your body, and dis-ease leads to disease.
Yes.
So not going to pull us on a tangent, but there's 150 autoimmune diseases. And then there's a bunch of diseases that Western medicine loves to call idiopathic, which means there's no known cause. And this very smart gentleman and another Dr. Gabor Mate, who's a really smart gentleman, he's been a physician for 40 years, will say that is complete crap. That if you have an illness, and they say it's autoimmune or they say that it's idiopathic, it always has to do with your thinking that creates the stress, that creates the disease, that creates the disease. So if you're struggling with any way in your life, I promise you, I can trace it back to these thoughts in your head that are buried that you don't even know exist.
And this has caused you to fix relationships in your life. And like you said, you've made millions, you've lost millions, you've been through, you're in your third marriage.
I'm not married. I'm in a phenomenal relationship with my business partner and life partner, Yvonne.
Got it. But you've had access to millions of dollars and it wasn't really fulfilling you. And so you had this, evolution going on in your life. And I just love it. And you coach others and you have found your purpose. And by the way, I have my own life purpose. I wanted to read this to you. I use my humor and my experience to inspire and educate others while coaching with integrity. So that's one of my activities that I teach some of my students is how to come up with your life purpose statement. And the integrity was the big one for me because of all these crazy gurus out here. And you are so far from a guru. I love all of that. And so thank you for sharing it. And how do people find you and become part and get you some coaching and get a transformation for their own life?
Yeah, bradchandler.com. The quiz is on there. Go take the quiz. And I just have to let you know that, again, if you're suffering and I've tried that. I've tried everything. I tried 30 years of therapy. I went to 50 different marriage counseling sessions. None of it worked because unfortunately, most of that focuses on the symptoms and the conscious mind. And, it's almost like, what's a good analogy? You've got a headache that happens every single day and you just keep taking Advil and it never is going to go away. Right. Let's figure out why you're getting the headaches in the first place. So if you're suffering in any way, shape, and form in your life, you don't have to. There's a better way. And I was given this gift 3 years ago, and now I've taken this gift and I've added on and I've added on and I've added on. And I want you to know that wherever you're struggling with, I walked in your shoes to some degree. I'm not saying I know what you're going through, but to some degree, we've all walked in each other's shoes because I believe we're all one. And there's a pathway out of this that doesn't take, going to your therapist once a week for 25 years. Literally in 3 to 5 sessions, I do this every day. Your life can be completely changed. So if I can help you, reach out to me, bradchandler.com/contact. You can actually pull my cell phone number off there. I am on this earth to help you and to make an impact. And if I can help you, let me know.
Well, it is exuding from everything that you say. And again, I have been stalking you, and this has been so much fun finally getting you on the show. You heard me give a badassery bestowment, which is a little nugget for real estate investors. But do you have a badassery bestowment you can share with my audience?
Yeah. Start loving yourself like your best friend, because despite what your mind might be telling you, you were enough. You always were enough. And you always will be enough. Yes. And everything that you've ever needed to be happy, you have right now inside of you. So stop chasing relationships and cars and food and boats and whatever it is you're trying to chase, thinking that's going to bring you happiness, because it's not. Look at Matthew Perry. Look at Whitney Houston. Look at Michael Jackson. We could go on and on and on and on and on. Your happiness comes from within. And when you figure that out, oh my gosh, life becomes so amazing.
You are amazing, Brad Chandler. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And this is a perfect segue to the second part of the podcast, which what makes Brad Chandler a badass, which clearly you are. And I use the acronym BADASS. And the first letter is B for book. What's a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
The Way to Love by Anthony DeMello.
Anthony DeMello. I got to write this down. And you mentioned the E-Myth before too. I'm a big fan of Michael Gerber. I got to meet him at a conference too. And he talks in circles, by the way. He's not a very good speaker at events, but it was an excellent, excellent book. So what is it called? The Way to Love?
The Way to Love. Yep.
And who's it by?
Anthony DeMello.
And why was this such a game changer for you?
I give it to every one of my clients as a free gift. And I can't tell you, for me, it opened my eyes. This guy was like a Christian-based guy, and then he moved to India. So he's got kind of like the Jesus Buddha mix. It's just phenomenal.
That's a very good mix to have. I like it.
Yeah.
I used to live near a Buddhist temple down in South Florida, and just beautiful ceremonies that they had. And I felt like I got very good vibes from them. So anyway, I digress. All right. The first A in badass is for advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I'm going to do this just because it's a real estate podcast and a business podcast. I used to say this, the old Brad liked this more, but it's getting wealthy isn't hard. It's just doing things other people aren't willing to do.
Oof. That is very, very good. And I also had a saying, I'm going to totally butcher it, but it said, it's about becoming an entrepreneur is living 2 years of your life like most people won't, so you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. So very similar advice there.
And that's what I did. I came home and instead of drinking beer and partying like my friends, I was pounding "We Buy Houses" signs.
So we use the ones that are on like the H like stands for the ground. And I have this funny video of my husband putting it out there, but I said, we buy houses and aerate lawns, because he couldn't get it into the dirt. He's poking holes everywhere. Anyway, all right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives Brad to be successful?
Oh, impact. Just giving this gift back that I've been given. It was the most precious gift I've ever gotten in my life, and I want you to have it.
I love it. And I can't wait to take that quiz. All right. The second A in badass is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
To reach 1 million people, to positively impact 1 million people, to end their suffering, because most suffering in this world is self-inflicted by our thoughts.
Those limiting beliefs. Give us a couple examples of limiting beliefs.
Oh, I'm not smart enough. I'm not fast enough.
I'm too old.
Not attractive enough. I'm not enough, period. That's the biggest one of all. They almost all feed back into, on some level, every human being has this I'm not enough to some level.
Yes. Goodness. Again, I could go another 10 hours. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Wow. KPIs are just so huge. We didn't have those in our Express Home Buyers
key
business.
Performance indicators.
Yeah. Just being able to see the numbers. We can real time almost see any number we want now. It's pretty nice.
Yes. And super, super important. I married an accountant who is Mr. Numbers. I am so far from numbers, but it's nice to you don't know anything until you see the numbers, because the numbers don't lie. All right. To wrap this up here, the final S in badass is for success. And you definitely have achieved success. So what does success mean to you?
Yeah, I want to tell you what I thought success was for 47 years. And it's what you hear. You turn on the TV. The only definition of success has to do with money.
Yes.
And I've realized that success has nothing to do with money. Money will give you some type of flexibility, but it won't give you freedom. The only thing that can give you freedom is self-love. So success to me is waking up every day, making an impact, doing what you were meant to do, because you were put here on this earth for a massive mission. The fact that those sperm and egg met is a complete miracle. Despite what someone may have told you, that you wish they wish you weren't born, or whatever mean thing someone said to you, screw them. Like, you're a miracle. You literally were a miracle. And you have a massive mission. You might not know what it is because of these limiting beliefs. And that's another byproduct, Jen, of doing this work, is oftentimes we see people's life purpose comes within weeks or months of doing the work. It's just a beautiful thing.
Well, this has been a beautiful interview, and forgive my voice. I don't know why I'm so phlegmy today. It's like the tick with your eyes. I wonder what you were talking about that was making me so phlegmy.
It might have. Yeah.
There's something going on. You struck a chord with me today, Brad. Again, it was such a pleasure to have you on the show. And one more time, how do people find you?
BradChandler.com.
And your podcast is?
How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs.
And I listened to some of it. You have some great guests on there as well. And that it is definitely worth the listen. So make sure you all check that out as well. So thank you, Brad, for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And that is all. Thank you for listening. And we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.